percentage, we did well in terms of the assessments on the elementary, middle, and on the secondary, but in terms of graduation rate, we're only at 67%. So the next page breaks things out a little bit more, and it breaks it down by school, because some of our kids go out of district, especially if they have special needs. So it's students with disabilities that go to BOCES, that maybe go to a state-approved private school.
ARC.
What? ARC might be one of them, okay? So now you have to look at the different schools, and this just really summarizes all the things that I've been telling you about in the previous slide, okay? Another piece of our annual report card is on the next page, and that's the cost per pupil. And I know our cost per pupil is high. And these data, what they do with the financial report card is just like the academic performance, they have a look at last year to see how we did. For the financial, they go back 2 years. And our cost per pupil in what they say in general education, which is our budget divided by the number of students, that's just simply how they do it, is $15,495. And if you look just below that, at this mark here in bold, you'll see that similar school districts typically cost around $9,695 per kid. So we are high in terms of what we pay per student. In terms of across the state,
Back up on that last topic.
yes,
And how they compare to other districts. Are other districts as rural as our district? Are they more densely populated? These have to all be taken into effect when you're going to compare districts.
they're all things that come in, that they don't break it out that way. I think that what they basically are saying, what's the budget divided by the number of students. So but every district, I agree with you, and that also includes the big five are in there too, when they compare us to the average. So it's not broken out, it's just to kind of comparison's sake. And what you can do is if you go on the school district website, state website, you can look at these for all districts. These report cards are publicly available, so you can compare yourselves to districts next door. And that's what we did last week at our board meeting when we presented the school report card. I compared us to school districts around the area. So good question. In special ed per student, we are, our expenditure is $40,128 per student. Similar school districts, $26,949, and the state average is $26,888. So we do cost more, we do spend more. What's important to know is about 75 to 80% of our budget is staffing, and it's salary and benefits. And so that makes up the bulk of our budget.
Are the other schools, special ed students failing like this school system is?
Good question. What has happened is overall, the state, they've been moving the benchmark higher, like the goal higher. And as that's happened, this is the first year a lot of schools have been identified where they have students with disabilities.
Oh, so they're raising the bar instead of lowering it, like they have been in the past.
Right, okay? So,
Next question.
so there are school districts that are doing better than we are, but there are also a lot of school districts who are in this hole with us, okay? And we had to write an improvement plan, and we had to petition to the state how we were going to remediate meet our students' needs who are not making adequate yearly progress.
Ontario is so much more expensive to educate one student than other districts or even private schools?
Well, this is a huge number here. This is a nut that I'm used to when I worked in northern Westchester County. And I think that the bulk of our contracts, there's two things going on. One is the amount of staff that we have for the number of kids we have and the efficiencies. And that was a question last year, how many staff have you really reduced? I remember that question right over here, and I think it was your question. And the other issue is that, you know, I look at our contracts where we start a teacher, and believe me, we're hearing from people about, you know, how are we paying people and how much we're paying them. But there's a lot of restrictions on what we can do, but we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later if we get the chance. But the issue is that the bulk of the contracts are salaries and benefits, and our teachers start here from the 80s. It's just worked its way up. We start teachers master's step 1 at $60,000. Now, I compare that even to my own husband, who is a social worker upstate in Niskayuna, hopefully retiring. But his salary with 34 years in is $88,000.
So,
If he was here, he would make about $20,000-$30,000 more. So the bulk of our expenses are contractual, and there's a lot of restrictions that go on when we negotiate contracts. I'm going to just figure out how you would like me to proceed. Do you want me to kind of move through, or do you want me to take questions along the way?
Whatever you feel like doing.
Okay, so go ahead.
Or you wanna go
well, I'm
with
just
this?
curious, you said, you know, 60,000, start at 60,000, is that including the benefits, is that including?
No, the benefits
So
aren't.
in addition to the 60,000, how much more is it costing? I mean, that's the bottom line, is what is it costing, including the benefits required by the union that has,
I'd say roughly around 25,000 on top of that.
so starting compensation package for somebody fresh out of is $80-some thousand.
You're correct. You're correct. And this is one of the problems that we have, because we are in negotiations, and there's things that I can speak about and things that I can't when we're in negotiations, is that we know that those salaries are high. We also have a more senior faculty, which means that there's not many people on the $60,000 step, but also the tri-borough agreement, which is something that we have to follow with unions as part of collective bargaining, does not allow us to unilaterally freeze their pay, cut their pay. Everything has to be mutually negotiated and signed.
But you have performance requirements, right?
Well, we do have performance requirements, and there's more performance requirements coming down from the state. But I think that that's not what is impacting the budget in terms of what's going on, in terms of why we cost so much. But we are also working the reconfiguration. The goal of the reconfiguration is not just to get better financial equity out of consolidation, but also to allow us to focus our educational program.
Well, that's the whole point, but, you know, and if you're straddled or burdened with such finances, one can only wonder how can you focus on the quality of education that you're providing for the student.
Well, we are. It's been busy, and they've been working on this. I mean, some things the district was working on before I got here, and some things we've been working very hard this past year and a half to really look at this, and some things were a long time coming. So we are focusing on that.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
The union that Auntie Aura works with or whatever, right, the teachers' union here, is it different from the teachers' union, say, for Kingston or Woodstock, or, I mean, not Woodstock, or Marlboro or New Paltz, or is it a different teachers' union?
Every teachers' union is separate, except that they all are subsidiaries of NYSA, New
'Cause
York State
my-
United Teachers.
My question is this: how is it that a teacher would start at Marlboro for $42,000 and at Auntie Aura for $60,000? How did that happen?
That happened, honestly, this is what happened in the 80s, when the contracts were set up to try to attract people, and that's when there were teacher shortages, and they built contracts to try to bring people, And then the contracts, when there's step-in contracts, those are automatic increases that go up along the way. And what we're dealing with now are things that have rolled.
Well, how does that get rolled back?
The only way it gets rolled back is through negotiation.
Well, that's the only way we could do this, right? So we need a school board that's going to stand up to these unions as opposed to allowing teachers to give in to the teachers. I mean, as an example, and this is